chat. Keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so no-go, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on UCY.tv. Thank you everyone for tuning in to our 420 episode of the Anti-Media. Glad to be here. It's been a while here doing this show, and this is one of the first times where we're really celebrating the whole 420 thing, because it's such a beautiful time right now when it comes to what's going on with drug liberalization, decriminalization, legalization, and all that stuff. And obviously with places like Colorado, Washington, making huge strides against the drug war. Where we really have some things to celebrate, and obviously a lot of work to, going ahead. We got some really interesting angles that we're going to talk about tonight regarding the drug war and, the cannabis culture, different things, economically, health-wise, the drug war, the laws, the police state, all this stuff. There's so much to do. I'm joined in the studio tonight by Jake Anderson. How you doing tonight, man?
Good, Nick. Feeling especially good right now.
So we got plenty to talk about, and we're also joined by DB Schwartz. He's joining us from Peru. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Nick. Estoy en Lima, Peru.
Oh, yeah. So how's it going in Lima right now?
It's chill, man. That's all I can say. It's just it's Latin America. It's everybody gets along, and all the food's delicious. And it's my third time here, so more comfortable than I was before. It's awesome.
Nice. Hell yeah, dude. Well, I'm glad you're having a good time down there, and hopefully you have a chance to go see Machu Picchu and all that stuff. Are you going to go up there, or you already been up there?
I've already been up there twice. I'm just enjoying 420 like you guys, with our own outdoor.
Nice. Well, luckily we're here in California, where we've made some major strides against this, at least in the whole aspect of cannabis, and we're starting to make strides in the aspects of other drugs. And of course, I don't really think cannabis is a drug. It is in the way that it's used as a medicine, but recreationally, it's as much a drug as caffeine is, if not less, because it actually has healing properties and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So here we've been, California kind of set the standard when Prop 215 was originally passed, and it's been, a fairly long time since that's happened, and now things have changed all over the country. We've got at least 23 states now that have in one way or another legalized cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it. And that's a pretty sizable amount. That's almost half of the states in the country that have done that. So, to me, it is a process that we're having to go through. But I think that it's a battle that's being won. I mean, what do you guys think? I know there's so many different varying ideas about this whole process of drug marijuana legalization, and then of course further we talk about drug legalization and stuff like that. But cannabis is the first thing that we're talking about because that's the issue that's very relevant at the moment. It's something that's being talked about a lot, and so this is where we can really hit catch the current that's going and really ride this thing to where we can get fully decriminalize marijuana, like for the whole country, because it's not right that half the states are still having to deal with this. There's still, half the people in this country still have to worry about getting a felony just for having a minor personal use marijuana.
Spend the rest of your life in prison having a plant that makes you eat,
And it kind of like single-handedly does fuel the whole war on drugs, because if you really think about like all the drug kingpins in the world and all the deals going on, do you really believe that things like heroin and coke, which are so profitable, are actually being targeted, or are they simply trying to stem the flow of marijuana in because they really can't profit from it? I mean, you have to look at all the big drug busts. What are all the big drug busts usually? 5 tons of marijuana, and no one cares. And it's just an asinine notion that this plant is basically fueling a criminal enterprise, pretending to stop criminal enterprises.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the big problem with drug criminalization. And we can take examples from the U.S. going back to this whole Prohibition era, where they tried to ban the sale of alcohol, and we all know what happened then. That's when you had the mafia. It gave rise to the mafia and the mob, and you force these marketplaces that are typically just being done in the open, and you force them underground, and then you get all those symptoms that come along with this underground market. And nothing against them, but in the current situation, it requires a lot of violence. Look at the cartels, the amount of people killing. Look at all the mob back in the day, and even still, how many people they've killed. And
then look at what it's doing in countries that have like started to actually decriminalize all drug use, like Portugal. Like Portugal right now is undergoing a absolute renaissance on a social level. You're talking about empty jails. You're talking about people being free to make a bad decision, but it hurts them, man. You know what I mean? And if they want to go OD on something, so be it. It's a lot better than people shooting each other in the streets, is what they've basically come to find.
Yeah, exactly. Portugal, it's doing pretty well. What they do over there is, instead of throwing you in jail, they'll basically put you into a rehab or some kind of treatment facility where you could actually get help. And so that's why they've seen a lot of their addiction rates go like way down in recent years after they legalized all the drugs. Is because people get help instead of getting thrown in jail, where many times it gets worse. I forget the percentage of people that go back to jail that have been in there. It's over 50%. Like a lot of people that go in, first time offenders, they end up going back because they get worse by going in there, man. It's a traumatic thing. I'd be willing to bet that a lot of the people that go to jail probably get PTSD and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's the drug war is a perpetuating problem, and it just keeps on making itself. It keeps on prolonging itself, and it keeps on incarcerating more people.
It's just an excuse too. It's just an excuse to keep this status quo going of this like black op kind of budget underground pipeline these guys need, because they could never get people to sign off on like a $2 trillion a year defense budget. They could barely pass the 737 or whatever it was. So they need way more money than they're fleecing out of us to continue these global drone-based operations. And that's one of them, man. One of them's going to get gold, and one of them's going to get drugs.
I think we're joined on the call now by Manny Aguilar. How's it going, man?
What's up, Manny?
What's up there? What's up, Nick? What's up, DB? He's inspired me now. He says Machu Picchu is no big deal. So I want to encourage him. Maybe him and I and Nick could do the Pacific Crest Trail next year, because I'm saying bye to all my friends right now. They're starting down there. They're headed for San Diego County to start at the border and all the way to Canada. And they said, well, it's only 2,653 miles. Oh, really? Only, huh? Only 2,653 miles. But, yeah, so I went out there, basically talked to my friends in L.A. before they left and said bye to them and all that. And then, of course, my special goodbyes to the ladies, because, I take care of my male friends, but my lady friends, they need some special attention for Manny, if you understand what I mean. So I got to go out there and make sure everything's okay, and then boom, and stuff like that, So it's okay though.
Nick. Show 'em your waka.
And so that's incredible though, dude. I just love that, man, because we have all these people from around the world coming. I mean, it's just amazing and stuff like that, But chiming in and what you guys were talking about, the cannabis and stuff like that. Now, one of the concerns that I have really is not the pure stuff. It's the stuff that's going to have all the, all the fillers and stuff like that. And now Monsanto seems to want to come into the game of being a cartel. Now they want to create GMO, cannabis. I mean, come on. What's up with that,
Well, who's going to buy the seeds legally? I mean, that's the silly. There's really no logic behind that, because they can't legally sell those seeds. So I think we could relegate that to maybe possibly a rumor. I haven't really researched it, but if they decide to do that, then they're going to really see what it's like to be gangsters, because then they will get visits and knocks on their doors.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I don't know if they'd see. I don't think there'd be a marketplace for Monsanto for like GMO marijuana seeds. I think people would probably reject that. It's
who'd buy it?
Most of the people that use cannabis are pretty much, at least a little bit savvy to a lot of things that, are kind of counterculture type things, like the organic movement and, the whole deal with Monsanto and all the horrible things that they've done. So I don't think that they'd be able to get away with it. But I think they're probably going to try. But I mean, I think they'll be rejected. But you never know. It's weird. It's then you start talking about the states where they're going to have the state controlled marijuana setups, and those are the ones that might use those kind of seeds and stuff like that. And that's why I think one of the things that I think is important about the larger trend here, as far as this whole economy of cannabis and, marijuana products and all the byproducts and all the equipment and all that stuff that people sell, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? I think it's important to stay connected to the local grower, the people that you already deal with, because if we start shifting it into this Walmart style, cannabis game, then you're going to destroy a lot of like the culture that goes along with it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I guess that's a dynamic that we're going to have to see how it plays out. I think there's definitely going to be certain people, like people that are disconnected, maybe older people that don't really have, the connections to get weed from people that they know. Those are the people that end up going to these, big dispensary chains that are going to pop up and stuff like that.
And it will happen.
Yeah.
They're already talking about that.
Oh, yeah. It'll happen.
The next 20 years, marijuana products and cigarettes and being in your local gas station will be commonplace. It's not going to be seen as weird at all.
Yeah, and there's going to be a big time internet game too, as far as weed. Once it's like federally, legal, there's going to be a bunch of websites popping up that do deliveries, and there already are, man. There's already a bunch of those, but it's going to get intense.
The thing is that
it's going to be like the Uber.
The thing is they don't understand is that people that are going to make up their actual like cash buy, like bulk customers, people that are, more or less stoners or whatever you want to call them, people that are daily, that will buy it every day, they're not going to buy from those big things ever. They're going to want to know the strain. They're going to want to know the grower. They're connoisseurs. And then the best thing about it is it's going to make it so you can grow it in your house, fill your house up. Nothing they can do about it. So I hope that Monsanto just, fails.
Corporations will invest in having a team that can cater to that kind of market. Large corporations will end up dominating the weed market, hands down.
if we're not careful. See, but I see the
doesn't matter
trend.
how careful we are, they will do it.
The way I see the trend, though, is like the trend of like the grassroots weed movement is heading in the direction of like more and more of a cottage type of industry where like DB was saying, people want to know the strain, they want to know what was put into it, they want to know this, they want to know that, they want the dankest shit available.
Right, but it's not legal. When it's legal, you're going to see an ascension of organization and corporate monopoly that we've seen with any other product.
Yeah, and there's some of that already being witnessed.
I think it's so easy to grow, though. That's the problem. It grows like a weed. Like, you can't brew beer quickly, but you can supply yourself no problem if you have like just a room in your house.
And I'm not talking about more seasoned connoisseurs of the plant. I'm talking about like your average family or whatnot that wants to get some. I mean, they're going to be like, "Oh dear, we're at Walmart. Let's get a joint, honey," and they'll get high off of it.
So do you think most of the people that do you think by federally legalizing marijuana would it increase the marketplace of weed greatly, or do you think that most of the people that smoke are already smoking? Most people that aren't going to smoke are already not smoking?
No, I think, and I'm not advocating for this necessarily, but I think you would see the number of people using marijuana for the first time and using it like frequently would skyrocket, because we're a consumer society. That's what we do, is we consume. And if there's a new hot product on the market, weed, something that most people are not used to seeing in a store or whatnot, they're gonna pick up on it. And it's gonna, like, way more people are gonna be smoking marijuana, and it's gonna be, a good thing. It'll lead to a more enlightened society, one would hope.
I think one thing, though, that a lot of people overlook when they talk about legalization is none of the companies that require, the piss tests are going to stop just because it's legal. They're not going to hire you if you're positive. That same bias is going to continue on unless they can somehow make it to where that's illegal to not hire somebody because they tested positive. So I don't think you're going to get this millions and millions of new consumers. I just don't see people willing to risk it, and the stigma is just going to still be there. I
think the sea change will be as rapid as we've seen as with the gay rights movement. The gay rights movement has, their momentum, particularly since Obama's come to office, has been exponential. And you're seeing now people clamping down hardcore on homophobia all across the country. I think a similar kind of realization could go on with marijuana, especially given the fact of how many different people know someone in their family who have spent years in prison, or maybe they themselves have spent years in prison over this. There will be a kind of retrograde, like, social justice that will come out about marijuana, which is that, this is a drug with a history in this country, and I think it has the potential of being like almost a transformative movement in a way, and not just for people that smoke every day, but just as a symbol of what it's been. It's been a real repressive force in the country.
Yeah, man, and it does so many things that we don't even realize, right? And we're gonna get into that later about like the economic impacts,
like hemp and stuff.
And well, yeah, I mean, there's so many different sides of this, like the positive.
And the smoker test. There was a test where they did a daily cigarette smoker who smoked and one who didn't, and they showed almost conclusively that they cut the lung cancer rate, by something in the 90th percentile. Like, it was an enormous impact on lung health.
But wait a minute, I didn't see that on CNN. Surely.
Sanjay Gupta, you son of a. Yeah, so what it does is an anti-mutant. It's an anti-mutagen. So while you're creating cancer cells by smoking cigarettes, they will just as easily be killed while smoking a joint.
Yeah, that's the truth, man. And that's the thing, is that there's so many different health benefits from weed. I have this article right here from Kerry Wedler, April 7th of this month. But basically, the federal government, one of their research bureaucracies, basically is admitting, or has admitted, that cannabis can help kill brain tumors and help reduce brain tumors. And so to me, I was like, all right, this is like great news, right? Because now they're going to reschedule cannabis as a Schedule 2, or at least not Schedule 1. But that's not the case. The judge just recently ruled a few days ago that they're going to keep, cannabis at a federal level as a Schedule 1 drug. And as we can pretty much predict, at least I've been predicting, that we're going to see a Republican president coming into office in the next election. I don't think we're going to
be president.
Might as well be, right? I don't think we're going to be able to see any kind of federal drug decriminalization until the following election. That is unless something big happens in this coming election and somehow an independent rises to the top, and that actually happens. I mean, it's a long shot.
Well, Rand Paul didn't he just endorse a bill that was going to be federal legalization, if I'm not mistaken. So if he can come out of the Republican track somehow, I mean, maybe you do see it this ballot.
Yeah, man, but you got to keep in mind that if Rand Paul were to actually become elected, he has to get elected by these right-wing evangelicals, man, and so he's not going to be able to do anything that, even if he wanted to do any drug rollbacks, I don't think it would happen. I mean, Obama couldn't even do anything.
The problem with Rand Paul also is that he's a sociopath.
Aren't they all?
That's true. He is a habitual liar.
Yeah,
almost all politicians
are
are sociopaths.
Yeah, but he looks.
He's a flip-flopper.
He's a. Well, okay, we don't need to cast.
That's what I was going to say. Actually, back in 2013, when he was talking to one of these evangelical groups, he assured them, and keep in mind, no press was allowed in there, so it would, the only way that this got out was from people giving interviews after that were there. So there's no actual video of him saying this, which is the only thing that's a little bit sketchy. But according to the people that were at this evangelical pastors meeting with Rand Paul, he assured them that he wasn't for ending the drug war. He wasn't for decriminalizing marijuana completely, and that he wasn't. Basically what he said is that I just want to decrease the penalties for them. He's not saying I want to end it or legalize it. So it depends on who he's talking to, and that's why you really can't trust someone like that if they're going to be flip-flopping and stuff. I mean, it's hard to put any weight behind what they're saying, especially once elected. I mean, it's a whole nother ballgame. Obama said a bunch of great stuff, and I don't know, man. Unless we actually had a third-party candidate, I don't really have much hope in either one of the Republican or Democrats running a candidate that's actually going to do anything outside of the ordinary.
They just announced today, I think, Hillary, the person running Hillary's campaign was a chair for Monsanto. I mean, that's who Hillary wants representing the thrust of her campaign. It's a Monsanto representative, a lobbyist from Monsanto. I mean, really, people, I mean, are you going to put up with that? Democrats,
that's why,
Democrat friends of mine, are you seriously going to sit there and put up with that and give me the lesser evil bullshit argument again for the next year?
That's why I'm already calling that it's going to be a Republican that wins, because there's just no way in hell that Hillary's going to win with what she's already done and the baggage she has and just everything about her, man. She's not going to win. It's going to be just like John McCain running against Obama. It's going to be one of those situations.
I think there are a few qualitative differences between Hillary and McCain, but for all intents and purposes, on issues of social justice, I think she's a socially liberal in a way that I think differentiates her from McCain.
Yeah, she's worse than McCain, I think, in many ways on foreign policy, because everybody knows McCain's talking out of his ass and that he's just some war hawk. Hillary is able to disguise it, and she's voted for almost every single chance to go to war while she was in the Senate.
She loves war.
Yeah, so to think that she'd roll back the drug war, even if elected, which I think is a crazy long shot, I doubt that would ever happen. She wouldn't end it either.
So who do you think's going to be president, Jeb Bush?
I've been calling Marco Rubio, man, and that's why I think that the drug war is not going to get rolled back, because this guy is he's a young Hispanic guy, but he's a war hawk, man. He's basically a George Bush light, and so and he speaks Spanish. I mean, this guy is very electable. You know what I mean? I think he's gonna get elected.
Really?
But he's already been openly aggressive towards Iran and Russia and Ukraine and all that stuff, Syria. So I mean, this guy is just, I mean, he's
so
a complete Trojan horse once again.
If we sealed up Iran and then a Republican came in and got a war started with them, which is what will happen.
That's the thing. That's so sad. Is that's a likely scenario.
They can shut down the Strait of Hormuz, and it just like it kills the oil flow like worldwide, and it blocks Saudi Arabia from having any ability to sell any of their stuff. So that's why Iran and Saudi Arabia are fighting right now. And Saudi Arabia is absolutely insane. They're gonna get beat down, and then they can block the strait, man. That's what Yemen's about,
Yeah, I mean, it's all economic, and that's part of the reason why the drug war is enforced so much, is because it's also a huge moneymaker, and it's also a way to suppress competition, right? And I think that's what's been going on between, as far as the correlation between big pharma and the drug war, and them lobbying the government to keep cannabis illegal because they know that it can compete against a lot of their like opiate-based, painkillers and stuff like that. Jake has an article here that we have on the anti-media.
Yeah, this is an anti-media. This is written by John Vibes, and the article is entitled "Government Says." You got to trust the government, but they say big pharma kills more people than all illegal drugs combined. When the government's saying that,
wow,
it's true, since they would have there would be an incentive for them to want to say illegal drugs are worse since they have this drug war going on. But the fact is, I guess it's just so obvious they can't deny it.
You can't hide the facts.
You can't hide the facts, but the deaths relating to pharmaceutical drugs hit 23,000 last year. So there were 23,000 pharmaceutical drug-related deaths last year, which accounts for over half of the total overdose deaths in the country for that time period. So basically, heroin overdoses, crystal meth overdoses, cocaine overdoses, all of those combined were still less than the number of people who died overdosing a prescribed pharmaceutical pill, something the doctor gave them. So, it kind of really shines a light on the hypocrisy and futility of something called the drug war. I mean, at this point, it's a fiction. It's something that needs to be laughed at and completely deconstructed, because the drug war has never been about protecting us from dangerous drugs. Because if they cared about protecting us from dangerous drugs, they wouldn't be taking money they wouldn't be colluding with companies that are putting out dangerous drugs. I mean, how hard is it? I personally, I have never found it difficult getting any number of drugs that you probably shouldn't be taking from a doctor. It's not hard to do, and it's pretty sickening when you think of There was another article posted on the anti-media about they're prescribing Adderall to 2- and 3-year-olds.
Yeah,
I mean I'm sorry, that's criminal. That's criminal.
So you got this fact that big pharma, and related drugs are killing, people are overdosing and dying from this stuff at a higher rate than all the illegal drugs combined, right? While at the same time, big pharma is lobbying the government. It's the second largest spender in Washington on keeping the drug war intact. To criminalize people that are putting out a product that could, compete with them. And this is like the very essence of why capitalism is like such a messed up thing, because this is what tends to happen. This whole idea of monopoly and this whole idea of the government and the corporation becoming a single entity. You know what I mean? So this is, this whole talk of the drug war, it goes so much, it's so much deeper than just like people getting arrested and thrown in jail, and it's messed up. These are, it's like it goes all the way up to the top, the corruption and like just this idea that people can spend money to keep people in jail. This is an idea that's completely immoral. Yeah. Anybody that's spending money to keep the drug war going, those people are the ones that should be thrown into prison. And that's basically the idea that Joe Rogan was putting out there on the meme that we used for the promo of the show.
Are you talking about, and I think you were touching upon the privatized prison system?
Yeah, that was the next point in this
Yeah.
article here. I mean, that's the next, this is one of the next biggest corporations or groups of people that spend money to keep these harsh penalties in place, because obviously the private prisons, once again, it's basically a welfare corporation, right? It's like a these private prisons are basically parasites on taxpayers, right? And then they get these mandatory, they get these guaranteed contracts with the government. They house all these so-called criminals, many of which are just nonviolent offenders, victimless criminals, and we have to pay them to do that, right? And so it's in their interest to make sure that they're always going to have full jails. And we all know the situation here in California. Our jails are way overcrowded. I mean, our jails are completely overcrowded. It's like inhumane the amount of people that we have in there, and it's sickening that these people are willing to spend money to like keep people into this situation. And then you start getting into the darker side of the private prisons, and we start talking about the labor practices and how they're basically, in one way or another, it's a form of conscripted labor, or near slave labor. And that's a whole nother side of this that is just, so far out of the range of morality that it's like almost unbelievable that it's happening.
It goes even worse. It says prison companies, the prison companies then spend millions bankrolling the pro-drug war politicians, and then kind of lobby them. Groups like the American Legislative Exchange Council to pass,
ALEC,
get ALEC and get them to pass harsh sentencing requirements for drug crimes. So you have a private corporation that's lobbying the government to give them more criminals, to pass laws to give them more criminals. I mean, it's the most demented collusion of corporations and government. I mean, it's like from a science fiction novel or something.
Yeah, it's a dystopian. Present.
Orwell would be proud. Go ahead, DB.
And it created demand by creating a derivative market based on future labor of prisoners. Can anyone understand what that means? They have to create more prisoners each year to keep that pyramid going.
Well, it's the same as the healthcare industry. Or they need sick people to give them the money, or to give them the medicine, and you start to see a pattern emerging here when you talk about these different industries, and the law of the land seems to create this feedback cycle that's creating more and more customers,
So here's a kind of a surprise little point in this article here, and this one is going back to this op-ed that I did a few weeks ago about drug dealers and how the drug war is affecting the urban areas in a certain way. We'll get into that after we get through these. But the alcohol and beer companies are also in the drug war business, and they actually spend money to keep the cannabis illegal.
Oh, what a surprise!
And it's kind of ironic because obviously back in the day during Prohibition, the alcohol companies themselves were under persecution, basically, and now they're the ones spending money to keep weed illegal. I mean, that's insane. That's just hypocritical. I mean, that's crazy. Can't believe that. But they're one of the biggest. Do
you mean to suggest that the alcohol industry is immoral?
I mean,
it markets, of course. Anything that markets something that destroys life.
Oh.
I mean, why do we have marketing for alcohol? Honestly, it's to people that are over 21 already go to bars. They know what to drink. It gets them young, man. It drives the whole system.
There's a documentary people might want to check out called Beer Wars, and it actually goes into the lengths and money and effort that is spent by alcohol companies to basically dominate a storefront. Literally, they get their stuff front and center in front of everything. Check it out, Beer Wars, pretty good.
That's why it's also important to support local craft beers and stuff, man.
Yeah.
And find I'm
if
sure
you're an alcoholic, at least support some craft beers.
Almost everybody's got a friend that does home brewing too, man. And setting up a informal marketplace for like beer and stuff, I mean, that's when we start getting into these ideas of like agorism and stuff like that, you know, and you know, and the other thing is that alcohol is like really heavily taxed too, you know, and that's why it's so expensive.
Oh, yeah.
When you make your own beer, like once you get good at it and you fishing with it, I mean, it's a lot cheaper, because the government has a really heavy hand in alcohol too. And
right.
the thing
and grains grow quickly and they don't need a lot of water.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people brewing beer right now. It's a huge movement.
So then, you know, the next point here is our favorite punching bag, which is the cops.
Yeah, they're fun to play.
And so the police unions are also one of the largest contributors of money to pro-drug war policies. And, you know, I guess they do it just to make sure they got all their hours, you know, and the unions are always in the game of increasing their hours and their wages and stuff like that. So having this drug war set up guarantees them overtime hours, you know, keeping them busy, keeping money flowing.
How do public servants have unions? It befuddles me. Like, they're not private. They're not a private corporation, although for all we know, they really are in reality. But how do these dudes, you know, lobby for themselves? They're supposed to be under our direction and our budget.
Yeah, man, and I'm a completely pro-union when it comes to like outside
private business.
Yeah, in outside of the public realm of things.
Right.
But yeah, like these government unions, like the police unions, are causing major issues, and they completely look out for their own. And you remember in the story of the guy the cop got caught on tape shooting the guy in the back while he's running away.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, like
probably one of the most.
He wasn't even a cop, was he?
Oh, no, he was a cop, but the union.
Yeah, the other guy.
Yeah, like the union totally had his back at first, right? The union's like, no, he didn't do anything wrong, this, that, and the other. As soon as the video comes out, they're like, oh, we don't. He doesn't even. We're not even representing this guy. He's not even part of us. Like, we don't know him.
Think what a low percentage of. I mean, take that and multiply it by exponentially, and that's what's going on. That just happened to be caught on videotape.
Yeah, man, and who knows how often
every day that probably happens.
It's happening more than once a day. I mean, there's like 90 to 100 people killed a month so far this year. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, man. It's just happening left and right.
I mean, if you want to there you go, Nick. If you want to bring them to their knees, make a union illegal for any public servant. Why? That's so illogical. It makes no sense. That will crush them. Then they have to do what we want.
So the next item on the list is also another union, and this is the prison guard union. And they, along with the cops, in 2008 alone, one of the unions spent $1 million in California to defeat a measure that would have basically reduced sentences for people that weren't violent criminals or whatever.
The prison guard union got in on this? Wow.
Yeah, so they're huge too. You keep in mind, we got a bunch of prisons out here in California. I mean, probably several 100,000 people work at prisons here. So, you know, this is a big union. Those guys get paid good money. And so, I mean, they obviously they can spend $1 million in 1 year to defeat one measure. I mean, that's crazy. So there's a whole stack of cards lined up against this idea of liberalizing drug use, drug possession, whatever you want to call it. But at the same time, we keep seeing win after win, victory after victory. And that just goes to show you how much of a strong organic movement there is to people just realizing that this shit is wrong. It's completely wrong. You know what I mean? And thankfully, trends like it may not have so much to do with voting, but it has more to do with just cultural trends. And like, you know, culture always spreads through the youth first, and then it goes upwards, right? And then eventually the older people are going to adopt the trends that are brought from the younger people, right? And that's what we're starting to see. There's a bunch. I know a bunch of people now that are older people that are openly, you know, smoking weed and stuff like that. And it's just like something that they've all along been doing, but like secretively, and you know, there's always the stigma like around it. And now that it's like becoming culturally acceptable, people are a lot more, open to it, and it's going up the ladder to the older people, and this is the way that's the way to reach these people. We can't get them. There's no way we're going to be able to get them to read these articles and stuff.
Well, older.
But what we can do is get them, they're like people in their family that are younger that change their attitude, and because people always have this tribal group mentality when it comes to like cultural trends and stuff like that. If someone's whole family starts to say, weed isn't a bad thing, then the person is the person that was not receptive to it before is going to start changing his attitude.
Depression
Right.
and drug abuse and psychological issues are very, much a part of, a population of senior citizens. And there are more senior citizens now than there have ever been. And marijuana is something that should really be looked at as something, as a way to deal with depression in elders. It's a big issue that's not addressed. It's a mental health issue. Of course, it's swept under the rug. But a lot of older people use marijuana, and it helps with all kinds of things. Their physical ailments with the cannabinoids that are inside the marijuana, and also just feeling better about your situation. And this is something that's, taken away from millions of people a day who would benefit from it greatly. And it's a pretty sad thing. I think that part of it too is going to help push the movement forward. Is that this is just a great healing drug.
And if you want the final nail in the coffin that will shut everyone up, just go Google Brave Michaela. Or any of the children that have been saved by CBD oil, and then try to tell anybody that knows those people's parents that it should stay illegal. They'll be like, screw you, when your kid's dying, you want whatever works. And this is proven to work.
And that's an amazing case you referenced there, too.
Hey,
Yeah,
Manny,
and it's one of many.
Yeah.
Manny, you're kind of quiet over there. How you doing, man?
Manny's under the weather, if you know what I mean.
No, just,
A cloud of smoke.
I'm here adjusting everything, it's just, because everything you're hitting a nail, yeah?
And plus, let's be honest, you're under a nice cloudy haze too, right?
Yeah.
Hey, he's in LA, man. There's a lot of smog up
A lot
there.
of smog.
You never know whether it's people smoking weed or if it's
Oh,
smog.
man.
That smog is thick, man.
Yeah, it is.
It smells better today for some reason, though.
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
So I want to get a little bit into these trends. I guess we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think it's really important to support the localized marijuana economy. And there was some stats that came out a while back out of Colorado that basically showed that the black market weed movement was like actually growing after following the legalization. And I think one of the big factors behind it, and then here's the thing that is going to be the catch, and this is why we talked about how like there's a possibility that this whole weed game could become a commercialized thing where it's like people are just buying it at Walmart and Costco and stuff like that. But here's the catch. If we take the examples from what's going on in Washington and Colorado, Washington is taxing it at some like a 40% rate. And Colorado is taxing it for the recreational weed at something like a 30% rate. So we're talking about a 30% added cost to any weed that you're buying at a dispensary.
And GMOs.
So I think that's going to keep the black market alive and well, is the fact that there's going to be this, basically what it is it's a regulation, and it's going to be a cash cow for these politicians or whatever, and they're going to be able to use it and act like they're going to use it for education, just like they act like they use the lottery money here in California for education. We all know that's bullshit.
Right.
The education system is horrible. But this is one of the factors we just got to keep in mind, I think. is that I definitely think weed is very much a counterculture. And I was at Earth Day yesterday at Balboa Park in San Diego, and it's basically the unofficial 420 gathering here. And I mean, it was like so amazing. It was awesome, and like there was just people everywhere, and everyone was smoking, and there was a crowd that had formed where it was basically like a herd of people that was there to like keep all the cops out, and people were just smoking and playing music and all this stuff. I mean, it was cool, man. And it was like I got to experience what it would be like if like people were like legitimately not being, oppressed for a moment. It was just a one day, and it's just a big, huge 420 gathering one day a year. But it was really nice to see it, and to experience it. But this is how things should be. We shouldn't be feeling guilty about things that aren't immoral.
Right.
Like if you do something that's immoral, then you should feel guilty. But I see morality as a very much like a personal thing. Like if you're doing things that are hurting yourself, like if you choose to smoke cigarettes or you choose to drink liquor every night, that's on you, right? That's something you're dealing with. When it starts like affecting people outside of your life, then it starts to become a moral issue, and you start to have to question like, okay, if I'm hurting people outside of my own self, then I have to start questioning what I'm doing, because then it's getting to be too much. But up until that point, I think people like right now, there's such a taboo and such a stigma around drugs and people that want to use ecstasy and people that want to use mushrooms and all that stuff. And not just cannabis, because now we're basically winning the battle on cannabis. Yeah, we got to keep fighting, but we can't forget about all the other drugs, man, because all these other drugs, even cocaine, stuff like this, that like not very many people die from this kind of stuff. People are being thrown in jail, felony, charges for just basic possession of this stuff. And that we can't forget about that stuff. We can't forget about the other drugs, because that stuff is just as important. So just as many people are getting tossed up. Weed is a great example because it's so harmless, right? Nobody ever dies from it. So it's like it's so easy to vouch for weed, but like on principle, we have to also stand up for all the other victimless criminals that are in jail, that are in there for cocaine, in there for ecstasy, in there for these kind of drugs.
Or even psychedelics. And I think that is the best example of it, is that, okay, with cocaine and things like that, those are drugs that have a demonstrated history of violence and things like that. But when you get into things like LSD and mushrooms, these are substances that it's been proven now that they do not have long-term damaging effects on the brain. They do not cause addiction. They're non-addictive, and these are drugs that help people expand their minds. It's a crime by the government that these things are illegal and are prosecuted, and it's pretty obvious why the government would not want LSD to be legal, because
right.
It elicits a way of thinking about things that kind of destabilizes everything that they stand for. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. We can't forget about all the other drugs.
So I got this op-ed.
Just read Timothy Leary,
Right.
I got this op-ed that I did, and it's called "Drug Dealers Are Entrepreneurs and the Government is Killing Urban Innovation." And it was, I had some detractors on it and stuff, of course, but it's basically, I mean, one of the points I was trying to make in this article was that I think that this drug war in a big way is very much just another type of like a very Jim Crow type of scenario where it really tries to target the people, the poor people, the minorities, and it hits them where it hurts, and where it's economic, right? It's where the money would be coming in, and then it's cut off. The people are thrown in jail, and that's one side of it. The other side of it is that I think that a lot of these young people that are the ones that end up selling drugs and stuff are actually just extremely smart people that are just in the wrong situation, and so in a way it's like a brain drain. It's for a lot of these urban areas where they're enforcing the drug war extremely hard. It's taking out a lot of the young thinkers that are in the area and throwing them in jail, institutionalizing people. And as we mentioned earlier, people that go into jail, a lot of times they wind up going back. I mean, there's a lot of various factors that are involved in that. And it just leads in, it carries on this cycle. And this seems to be like a common thread with this whole drug war. It's just this cycle that just keeps going, and it's kind of like this very Orwellian type of just apparatus to destroy resources and just to eat up productivity from the population. You know what I mean? And it just kind of like drains us at a cultural level. It drains our creativity. It drains our entrepreneurial spirit. It drains our experimental side of us and the mind opening side of things. And man, like you were saying about the psychedelics. It's that, not only are they not harmful for the mental health. I mean, there's been plenty of studies that are starting to show that they're actually beneficial, and that they've shown that the psychedelic mushrooms are like extremely beneficial mentally for being used to treat people with PTSD, being used to treat people that have had, traumatic experiences, helping people quit addictions. And I mean, so many uses for it. But once again, the problem with the LSD and the psychedelics is that it could actually help people cure problems. And that's a big time scare to the big pharmaceutical companies, because then it's going to...
Big no.
Exactly.
And we don't want cures. That's not sellable.
Yeah, man. So cannabis is easy because it's such a harmless drug, or, whatever you want to call it. But, these other...
It's something that hits home for me, too, because I had a cousin of mine that basically got addicted to these awful pharmaceuticals, the Vicodins and all those things, the heroin-based, poppy seed-based drugs. And, because of their good intentions, which, of course, have awful connotations to them, they started to make them less addictive or non-addictive, but they didn't work. So you got a guy that's got pain from whatever, working construction, and you get him on painkillers, and then all of a sudden you change it, and it doesn't work, and the guy's addicted already. So what does he do? Well, I mean, as insane as this sounds, he goes to heroin, man. And when you go to heroin, you get involved in the seediest of underbelly, black market gangsters, man. And this stuff's coming to middle America. It's coming to the real world. Because if you let yourself get strung out by these so-called MDs, one day your supply may get cut. One day your insurance may get cut. You don't know, and then guess where you go?
Well, DB, that's what actually, and it affects not everyone. I mean, that's the exact scenario that happened to Philip Seymour Hoffman. He was sober for 20 years. I think the report is that he had one drink at the wrap party for the master, and then had a surgery. And had to take some painkillers for it. This was a guy that was 20 years sober, and he was a leader in his discussion group. I mean, people came to him as like a mentor of how to stay sober. Gets on these pain pills, and then when his prescriptions ran out, he turned to heroin, and that's how that went down.
Yep, and it seems far-fetched to people until you go through the withdrawal symptoms of an opiate. It's not a joke, man, and these things are loaded with toxins on top of it, so then you're toxified, and then you're looking for relief from both of those things, and the only thing that will touch it is those hardcore drugs, man.
Look for if anyone's wondering, look for a supplement called Kratom. It stimulates the opiate receptors. It's an herbal supplement that can actually help wean you off of opiates. A close friend of mine used it himself.
Yeah, man, and one of the common drugs they use, I know one of my family members was put on methadone. Man, and it was it's basically you're taking someone off one drug, putting them on another one. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yep. So it's like I got this buddy. He's in Arizona, and he basically same scenario. He got hurt, and then they put him on painkillers. He got addicted to the painkillers. They took him off the painkillers, and then he turned to heroin. And this is a good example because he actually ended up getting caught. And he ended up, now he's facing a, felony charge, man. Arizona has very, very strict laws on drugs, and he's going to get a felony because of it.
And look, these people aren't getting addicted off of like one bottle. What's happening is you're able to go back, and I know from personal experience, you're able to go back and you're able to get refill upon refill upon refill, and you can stretch that pattern out for literally a year. and before they crack down on you eventually. They're making money off you first. They're gonna drain you of your money, and then they'll set you loose to the wolves of heroin. That's how it happens. They get their money first. They don't reject people.
And they control that.
Right.
They triple dip you. They triple dip you. I mean, and then it's every freaking industry, everything. Monsanto makes GMOs that make you sick. And then you get sick and you don't know why. And then you go to the doctor and they sell you drugs because they don't know why you're sick, because, God, it couldn't be the food. I eat the food, too. Couldn't be that. You know what I mean? So you get in these vicious cycles.
It's capitalism, man. It's the glory of capitalism.
It's satanic capitalism.
So, I mean, now that we start getting into this upper echelon of this whole drug war game, right? And we start to talk about above the laws, above the, quote unquote drug war. We got the CIA, right? It's like the next layer of the onion. And then, of course, we got like the scenario in Afghanistan where we went in there and they were basically the Taliban had almost eradicated all the opium. And we go in there in 2001, 2002. And then now last year they peaked. They set a new record of opium production. I mean, it's completely obvious. I mean, it's like we went in there, we reestablished the opium trade like while we were at it. You know what I mean? It's like there's drug dealers getting caught up on the street and stuff. But I mean, this stuff rises all the way to the very top.
Yeah, man. This is the angle of it that actually scares me the most.
Yeah, and once again, it's just that whole cycle, and they fund, the big pharma guys fund they lobby for the laws and the politicians that are going to keep the laws in place, while at the same time they get people hooked on the drugs, and then the people end up getting caught up in the drug war because they're hooked on the drugs. You know what I mean? And then it's all part of a cycle, man. It's a ugly profit scheme. And it's profiteering based on lives, man. It's based on people's lives. I mean, this is the stuff of nightmares, and it's being done in the land of the free. And literally, I don't know, 70% of the population actually believe it. They believe it's actually like, yeah, this is what a free country does. And I mean, it's so crazy, man, because it just the corruption is so deep, and the profit motive is what's in many ways driving this thing, and it's statism to the max. It's fascism. It's a combination of the worst of capitalism, socialism, and statism, right? It's just a big mess of horrible things, and it's oppressing a good portion of the population of the world. We're one country, yeah, we got 300 million people, but I mean, think about what we've done, what we do that ends up oppressing people all over the world, and it's a pretty dire situation.
In South America, multinational corporations and the government combined, they've been able to set up a power structure that oppresses the poor, and basically, with this power structure in place, the natural resources of the countries these are just easy targets now for multinational corporations, and those natural resources include opium, and that was what happened in Afghanistan. That was part of the game plan.
Yeah, man, I've talked to guys that were out there, and they never actually saw the fields being destroyed and stuff. And it's just a sad truth of what's going on. And most of that opium, I mean, it's most likely not the stuff that's as much on the streets as it is the stuff that's in the pill. You know what I mean? And from what I know, it's being carried out from Afghanistan and it's being sent to the pharmaceutical companies where they manufacture it. And they manufacture the Vicodins and all the other opiates.
How can we have a war on Afghanistan and a war on drugs at the same time, and we go to the place that manufactures one of the worst drugs of them all, and we just don't destroy the drug? Seems like a strange...
Yeah, it's a very hypocritical thing. It's a very odd...
it's just odd.
Train of thought. I mean, I can't believe they're getting away with it, is what I can't believe. Hopefully, if we get enough people in on, the movement, learning about all this stuff, we can put an end to it eventually, right? All right, thanks for tuning in. 420, happy 420, everybody. Peace. Catch you tomorrow, 5 days a week, same time.
Good night, Nick. Good night, Steve. Good night, Jay.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go, go